Here's some additional examples using the quadratic formula. So you can see in most of these cases, they're not problems that are easy to factor or easy to use the square root method, and that's why we're relying on this formula. And in each of these cases, something slightly different is going to happen, and I want you to see all these cases. Okay, so we're going to start off. We're going to use the quadratic formula here. Okay, so I'm going to start with my plug-in. Remember, I have A, B, and C in my standard form. This one is set equal to 0, so these are the correct values. I don't need to change anything. All right, I'm going to start with my substitution. So negative 13 plus or minus, and then again 13 again because that's my B value, minus 4 times 6 times negative 17. Okay? And then it's all over 2 times 6, right? My A value is 6. Okay? So now again, big simplify step. I'm going to go to the calculator and let it do its thing. 13 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 17. Okay? We get a pretty big number here. This one comes out to be 577. So I'm going to do my simplifying. X is equal to negative 13 plus or minus square root of 577. But again, simplify the bottom here. We have 2 times 6, so I can say that turns into 12. Okay? So this is a case where 577, when I take the square root of 577, it doesn't come out as nice as it did before. Right? So we're going to get 24.02. So I'm going to say whenever that happens, just take your first two decimal places and you can round your expression. You're going to get decimal approximations. Okay? So we're going to say negative 13 plus or minus, and instead of the square root of 577, I'm going to put in 24.02 in that space. Right? So I'm going to come and say this is now the same as 24.02 all over 12. Okay? So again, this really represents two problems. This represents negative 13 plus 24.02. That's one answer, all over 12. Okay? And then the other one is going to be negative 13 minus 24.02, all over 12 again. Okay? So we're going to get two answers out of this. Right? Again, with decimals and fractions, let the calculator do the hard work for you. Okay? Negative 13 minus 24.02. Watch what I do here. I'm not going to write in right now divided by 12. Right? The calculator thinks that you mean 24.02 divided by 12. We don't really mean that. So do these on separate steps. Get your numerator simplified, get your answer, then divide by 12. Okay, so a little thing on the calculator, just be careful about that. So it looks like I get negative about 3.09. So I'm going to say negative 3.09. That's an answer. Okay, and I can do the same thing with the other one. It'll be negative 13 plus 24.02. Okay, hit enter, get your answer. So that represents the top, divided by 12. This is a number slightly smaller than 1.92. So I'm going to say 0.92, and that will be my other answer. Okay. So this is, again, decimal approximation for 577. Just use the calculator to do that. It didn't work out to be something really nice. Okay. In the next one down, something interesting happens. So again, it's set equal to 0. I can plug into the quadratic formula. So I'm going to say negative b, in this case, here, this is my b value, right? Negative b is going to be negative 2, which is positive 2. Okay? So if you have a negative in the b spot and it's saying take the negative version of that, it's going to end up being positive. Okay? So it's positive 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared, okay, minus 4 times 3 times 10. Okay? So again, it's all over 2 times 3. So watch what happens here. A couple little, again, calculator things. When you're entering in your b squared, make sure that it's in parentheses. We need the calculator to tell us that we mean negative 2. So I'm going to say parentheses, negative 2 squared minus 4. My a value was 3, and my c value was 10. Okay? So watch what happens here. Underneath the radical, I have a negative 116. So this turns into 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 116 all over 6. Okay? At this point, this problem is done. You are not allowed to have a negative under the radical. Right? That's for us. If you go to your calculator and you say, type in the square root of negative 116, if I ask the calculator to do that for me, what's the square root of negative 116? We've seen this before. The square root of any negative number says, I'm sorry, we don't have any answers for you. Right, so this is actually going to be no solution. Okay? So if you ever get to the simplified radical step and you have a negative under the radical, no solution. You can't go any further to simplify this. You're all done. Okay. And the last example over here up top, I just want you to see because a couple little things happen again. First of all, this is the first time we're seeing that it's not set equal to 0. So before you can proceed, you need to turn this into x squared, subtract the 2x from both sides, right? And this would be the simplified form. Okay? If you notice, this is actually a factorable expression. This turns into x minus 4 and x plus 2 equals 0, right? And I can see I'll get a 4 solution out of this one and a negative 2 solution out of that one if I use the factoring method. Okay? So I want to show you that even though this is a good factoring method problem, I can still use the quadratic formula here. Okay? So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. I'm going to say my a value is 1, right? So that's a, b, and c, and I'm going to plug in. So again, negative 2 would be 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1. And again, don't forget that minus sign there, negative 8. Okay? All over 2 times 1, I know is just 2. Okay? So I'm going to simplify this inside the radical and say this turns into 2 plus or minus, well, this is negative 2 squared is 4, and it's going to be plus 32. Well, that's 36. All over 2. Okay? So this is what x equals. Okay? That's all the way at the beginning as well. So now I can simplify. I know the square root of 36. This becomes 2 plus or minus 6 over 2, which is 2 plus 6. Well, that's 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 2 minus 6 is negative. 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And if you remember when we used the factoring method, we got these exact same numbers. Okay, so you can use this quadratic formula on quadratics that work for other methods. You see, it's a lot more work than what I was able to just squeeze into that little space there to get these same answers. But it works if you want to use it. If you're stuck, if you're unsure, this is a great fallback. You can always use it for everything. Okay. Also, make sure it's set equal to 0. Right, little things like that are going to make a big difference if you're trying to plug in.